So we have some stuff on the recording.
Okay.
It has begun now. Sorry, I just need to close a bunch of these tabs. I think the reason why we call it multiple times is just from a testing perspective,
Mhm.
right? And just getting in the habit of
Oh.
making sure that
Mhm.
I realize I'm not sharing my screen, so I'm going to do that as well.
Okay.
Just making sure that our method isn't and I'm sure that you guys aren't doing this, aren't hard coded, essentially, right?
Mhm.
Because for example, like the what's a good example? The stars one,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like some people might um let me just fire something up. Actually not in Visual Studio Code. And I'm sure none of you guys did this, but some people potentially could, like, oh, I want to display horizontal stars, and they'll just write like, no, I don't want to give feedback. They'll just be like stars. Console right line. Stars. And they'll be like, all right, I'm done, right? Which really isn't in the spirit of what this is supposed to do, right? So I think this helps catch anyone that's accidentally just been like not really paying attention or doesn't really understand loops and stuff, and it's just like doing, for lack of a better word, silly things.
Mhm.
That's really why or the value that I see of throwing in tests like this. I know in Python, I think, if I recall correctly, you can actually write test cases within, they call them functions, but you can actually write test cases within the function itself so that whenever it gets deployed, it automatically runs these test cases to make sure that
Mhm.
it was built correctly, for lack of a better word, so that you can have, you can verify that the intended outputs are whichever, right?
Mhm.
So like the pi one here, if you know that with arguments 1, 2, and 10, it should be these outputs, you can always be like, um, you know, uh, return an error. Ah, oh my goodness. The autofill in Visual Studio is great, but also really annoying. If, method of 1 is not equal to 4.18888, right? And if you build like these types of checks within your code, or even have like a sort of a quality control or something method elsewhere. Sorry, I just saw that Amina is waiting at the door. Then it might make it sort of, you can automate some of the testing as well. Hey, Amina.
Hi, Amina.
Hello.
We were just talking about the sort of your question in the group chat as well, about like why we might want to call the method 3 times.
Yeah.
I can only think of a couple reasons. The first one is to catch people who are not doing the question correctly. I'm sure everyone here, did use like a for loop and iterated through it. But some folks might be newer to programming that I've met might just be like, all right, I want to print stars. I'm going to print stars, right? And this is their method, which obviously isn't in the spirit of the question. And then the other reason might be for error validation. So you might like want to sort of have like a quality control module within your overall program, just to make sure that, you know, as you make changes to your method, the intended output doesn't change. So if you have sort of a set of test cases that you know the answer to, so for example, we're using the volume of a circle here, where we know the expected output, we can run the method multiple times to validate the output, to make sure that as we're making adjustments to method, we're not breaking the intended output. But those are the only two reasons that I can think of, beyond sort of just testing it and making sure the values that come out are correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm not sure if, I think it sounds like Mona, you had finished part 2 already. Are we all done?
Yeah, I did part 1 and 2. I finished last night.
Yeah, I'm still working, I think, in part 2. I'm number 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of the stuff we've already all
Yeah.
seen before.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be too groundbreaking, though it is a nice refresher for some of the stuff that we learned a little bit earlier on. I know myself, I had forgotten how to do the switch statement, so it wasn't working for me. I had to go look it up again.
Yeah.
Because I was forgetting the break at the end of every case. And I was like, why isn't it working? Until I had to go look it up. It was somewhat embarrassing. But I guess, you know, real quick, did anyone run into any problems with part 1? Anything confusing?
Everything was clear.
Yeah, Sam.
Sweet. And then part 2, I think, is relatively clear as well, but just in case, did you guys run into anything interesting?
The last question.
The height. Yep. The height. I couldn't understand it, but at least I could find the answer by finding a formula to get to convert centimeter to meters and centimeters. For example, 200 centimeters is 2 meters and 0 centimeter, isn't it? We should. Yeah, is this right? Sorry, I don't quite follow. Can you repeat that?
At first I thought that we should change the centimeter to just meters, for example. But when I followed the table, I found it that we should convert it to a centimeter plus meters. For example, 275 centimeter is 2 meter and 75 centimeters.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I could do it.
Okay.
I could answer it. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, this one I just used. I had a 2-part statement, so I used, like, to get the meters, I just divided by 100 and rounded the result down, and then to get the centimeters, I used the mod command, because this calculates the remainder of division operation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was pretty key for this one. One thing
should it like display a table or?
I just displayed a single line. So like, I think my output was something along the lines of like, 275 cm converted to meters is 2m 75 cm. I think this is what my output kind of looked like.
Okay.
The other thing that I found interesting that I was experimenting with is I think it was with this one. Actually, no, I think it was with the sine table at the beginning. So this thing. So, we're relatively early, so I'm going to quickly steal your time as a captive audience. But so I think when we first did something like this, we used a for statement, right? Like int I equals 0, I plus plus, or I is less than value I plus plus. Just delete all this other garbage. Yeah. Why is this so stupid? Int value equals 100. I am confused why this is not working, but
you should change the comma with the
just
after 0. Yeah.
Right. I was working in Python earlier, and I think Python uses
yeah, exactly.
uses commas, and I was like, why is anyway? So normally we use something like this, right, where you just have like I as the incrementer, and all of that fun stuff. I was experimenting with because we like this one takes like starting value, say that equals and it takes a step size, right? So I was actually experimenting with setting I to starting value instead. So instead of doing it from 0 and using that as the counter, and basically using I times the step size plus starting value or whatever equals the sort of this value, and then calculating this, you can actually set I as your starting value, and then the I can increment by your step size as well, which then makes it a little bit harder to read, but also reduces a decent amount of the code that you need, right? Because if you do this starting plus step size times 10, then this will still increment 10 times, right? Because step size is how much it goes up by, and you choose, you want it to run 10 times, and that after 10 times, it'll be like this condition will no longer be true. So I found that really interesting, because now your calculation is a lot simpler, right? You just use I, and that's your actual value, and you can just do math.sine.I. It just moves all that other math and the counter math directly into the for statement. So I found that fun to try and play with. I only could do it with this one, because when I tried it again for the kilometer conversion table, I just got really confused, and I couldn't set up this statement in the same way. So it's definitely a lot more confusing to build.
Number 6, part 2, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in part
Uh-huh.
2. So I tried to do like the same method as this for 6.
Mhm.
I just ended up giving up because I was like, I can't. Which one is I? Which is the step value?
So what did you do? Because I had no problem with that.
Yeah,
It
I
was
just ended up
easy to,
doing the
yeah.
standard sort of I equals
Mhm.
0.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and then I is
I
less
did
than,
the same, yeah.
I wanted to try it with like
I
having the
know.
variables up here, but I just gave up. But yeah, that was my little exploration
Mhm.
for the week. I did take a peek at the other sort of questions as well, the other parts. They don't seem too new. I think a lot of them are actually very similar to things we've seen before. Like here's the quadratic equation again.
Mhm.
This might be a little bit challenging. I'm just skimming through part 5. These seem a little bit more intense because now you're generating an array, then you're looping through the array and all of that. So this one might be a little bit more confusing. But
So we have to look at it.
later.
Later.
But yeah, that's all I really wanted to chat through. Anything from you guys?
All is good. I think all is good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Amina?
Yeah, same here. I will just look at the other questions, and if I have any trouble, I'll just message you.
Sounds good. Alrighty. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank
now.
you, Sam. Thank you, Amina. Have a good one. Bye.